Welcome to Please Me, the award-winning bilingual podcast bringing you bold conversations and big clit energy. Sí, Please Me se puede ver con subtítulos en español. I'm Eve, your host, on a journey from trauma to sexual liberation. Join me and my guests as we dive into conversations around orgasm equality, self-love, body positivity, and essential sexual education. Let's reclaim pleasure and close the orgasm gap, one empowering conversation at a time. If you missed last week's powerful interview with Kanika Vasudeva, where she shares how a tragic miscarriage sparked her journey of emotional and spiritual healing, go back and listen now. Her raw honesty and deep wisdom on energy work, trauma recovery, and clearing sacral chakra blockages make this a must-hear episode for anyone seeking womb healing and inner transformation. A huge thanks to everyone leaving reviews. Please Me continues to rank in the top 10 global sexuality podcasts. Your support means everything. Keep the love coming by rating the show and join us on Patreon for ad-free episodes, bonus content, and early access. And be sure to sign up for my newsletter on Substack for more Please Me related news. Please Me is for mature audiences. Sit back, relax, and surrender to the pleasure of Please Me.
I really truly feel that as men begin to awaken and recognize their spiritual selves through the divine mirror of the women around them, that they will begin to recognize how important this subtle energetic exchange between two humans is. And that will actually become more of our sexual experience than a lot of the more primal physical.
ASN Lifestyle Magazine is your go-to source for sex-positive, sophisticated content covering everything from the swinger lifestyle and adult entertainment to intimacy, wellness, and more. You can read every digital issue for free, and subscribers get access to exclusive content. See the show notes for the link to subscribe and check out their Instagram. I'm excited to share that I now have a monthly column in ASN called Big Clit Energy, a Please Me series. Don't miss it and subscribe today.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
When the McLaren F1 team counts on speed, they count on Dropbox Dash. Dash finds what you need fast across all your work apps so you can focus on what matters. Learn more at Dropbox.com/McLaren F1.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country. Anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
Hello, and welcome to Please Me, the podcast that aims to destigmatize conversations about sex and sexual health by turning the sheets into our classroom. Today, I am so excited to welcome Susannah Rose Stokes to the show. She is a military veteran who served in Afghanistan not once, but twice. She also served as a victim advocate for sexual abuse in the military. She is the co-founder of House of Embodied Metamorphosis and a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy and speaks both Mandarin, Chinese, and Spanish. ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien. ¿Y tú? ¿Cómo estás, Steve?
I want to mention here that this show, Please Me, is actually a bilingual podcast and it has subtitles in Spanish. I love that. I can spread the word all around the world.
I love that so much. And where is your family from? Where's your lineage from?
I'm Puerto Rican.
Beautiful. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Well, we need more of that. I'm actually seeing more Spanish speaking advertisements on TV, which is so cool. And it's just really warming my heart to have America be a more inclusive place for not only humans, but also languages. And I recently discovered that the United States doesn't have an official language. Did you know that? There is no official language for this country.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. There's so many languages in this country. Pretty much every language you can find a community here. So it is great that you're seeing more commercials that are in other languages too, because we're not the only ones. People that are English speaking are not the only ones watching television. So it's good to have that representation for sure.
Not at all. There's a whole bunch of many different souls. And that's what the whole idea for this country was about. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I'm so glad that we finally got to connect. And I want to ask you about your work as a sexual health advocate in the military and how you helped victims as a victim advocate.
Yeah, that work was so powerful because it really started to connect me with my whole sacral region. I'll reference that a few times. To me, I see all of our body as an energy system. And one of the centers is the sacral. And that's really where our creative power lives. And of course, into the root as well. In the military, there's a lot of things that you do that are what they call voluntold. And where you get told to do something and it's a volunteer opportunity. But what I realized was it really was volunteer because they could feel that my energy and just the way that I moved through the world was one of wanting to nurture and assist and help people through their process, not just because there were people around me who were experiencing sexual trauma, but I had also experienced sexual trauma in my own life. And it's taken me many years to even admit that and share that into the world because I felt like I didn't deserve to say it because it wasn't penetrative. And over time, I realized that having someone barge into your room and try to take your clothes off, among a host of other small kind of infractions, so many women and men experience sexual trauma that starts off as what might seem small, and then it grows over time. And what I learned in being a victim advocate of survivors of sexual assault was, number one, our organizational systems are not set up to really face the shame that comes up during a sexual assault. And number two, that there is just not enough information or education around sexuality in our world. So people go into it blindly or just doing what they've seen their parents do. And I'll share it as our conversation goes on, but there were some very interesting reflections that I got from our younger Marines when I realized that they quite literally didn't know any better. They really didn't. They had no idea because they didn't have education around what safe and consensual sexual contact was. And it was in that role that I started to really learn how important education around sexuality is for our entire culture.
Absolutely. And what important work. And I have to say that is the work that I do here on Please Me, is educating people about sexuality in general. And we talk a lot about sexual abuse and sexual assault because even though the topic may not be specifically about that, it comes up so many times with so many people. It's such a common part of so many people's history. And when you think about the statistics around sexual abuse, 1/3 of women and 1/4 of men are sexually abused. And I would think that in the military, since there's such a big difference in females versus males, that there would be even more potential for abuse within the military. Is that true?
Yeah. My experience with who has experienced sexual assault is, I don't know, at least personally in my community, I don't know a single person that has not experienced some kind of assault on their sexual space, on their sexual energy, on even just their psychology around sexuality, because we also live in a culture where there is so much inbound around sexualization of people. That to me in and of itself is a sort of trauma. And also for those listening, you might hear a hiccup or two from the little baby that's in my arms as a result of the power of sexuality. So we can talk about that at some point. But
that's totally fine. We are family inclusive here. And so I am not bothered by that at all. And he's a sweet boy.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that for me, 100% of the people that I know have experienced some kind of sexual assault. And as I got deeper into healing work I spent the time, I gave hundreds of hours of trainings around sexual assault, what is sexual assault, how to have consensual sexual experiences while I was in the military. And then when I got out, as time went on, I've gone into more healing work and work with plant medicines and things. And in most of those containers, the people that come to me have, I would say, 85 to 90% admit to, or at least share, that they have had some sort of sexual assault experience, most of them when they were children. And a lot of those are also incestuous. I don't have the actual numbers yet, but as we build our research portion, we're going to include that and start to get factual and really like tangible data.
I love that you're collecting data about that, because it is really important to understand how prevalent it is. And so, yes, you mentioned psilocybin, right? And I understand that you had your own sexual awakening and healing as part of your spiritual journey. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, man. What I will begin by saying is that the sacral center and the womb, especially for women, and of course, everything that leads into the womb, the entire like cavity of receiving through the vagina and the vulva is this place of creation. And that's really this human child that I have is the example of that. That's what sexuality has the potential of creating. It also has the potential of creating deep pain and trauma. And usually we start from that place. We start from a place of deep anger and rage, because a lot of us as women, especially, we're receivers. And so when we are penetrated, there is a certain level of anger, shame, guilt, all of the things that the man who is penetrating us holds, that then gets held in our womb space. And so I went through that. I experienced, first of all, I ended up actually saving myself for marriage. And that was a whole experience, because I experienced a bit of a authoritative penetration by the church, you might say. The church itself was penetrating my psychology, what a virgin is, and things like that. And I went through then the deconstruction of that process. And then when I went to war and ended up cheating on my husband and having an affair and going into the realm of then open relationships and some versions of polyamory, which I have considerations of and thoughts on that we can discuss later. But essentially, all of that led me into this process of awakening and starting to clear out a lot of the trauma that lived in my womb space. And that journey was the journey for my own spiritual awakening. For example, for 1 year, I spent an entire year processing multiple UTIs, yeast infections, things like that, like severe pain and trauma in my womb that ultimately caused me to wake up.
Wow, what an interesting story. And the fact that you saved yourself for marriage and then later ended up having these experiences of cheating on your husband and then becoming part of the open relationship and non-monogamous lifestyle, right? It really was a journey for you. And so I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's so important that people understand that there are so many layers to sexuality. And as time goes on, things can change in your life and your mindset changes, your beliefs change. And so just out of curiosity, are you still part of the ethically non-monogamous community, or do you consider yourself monogamous?
I am now in the process of discovering what I would call the new earth sacred union is. I deeply believe in sacred union between two souls. For me, that looks like polarity, which is where there is a soul that carries much more of the embodied masculine, and then a soul that carries the embodied feminine for what my highest version looks like. And I do believe that is a thing that the majority of people ache for, whatever the then sort of external experience looks like. It doesn't necessarily have to be embodied in a man or a woman. But that then begs the question of, is it monogamous or polyamorous? And the one thing that I keep coming back to, because I deeply believe that we've been stuck in a lot of dualism in our society. Are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? Are you this? Are you that? And I think that we are moving toward a culture in which we learn that maybe there's a truth that's deeper than that. And for me, that's what it's looking. I don't consider myself to be monogamous, certainly not monogamous in the ways that I've seen in my parents' generation or in a generation that's been wrought with divorce and cheating on each other. I participated in that and experienced that. And then I went toward the sort of other end of the spectrum where it was fully ethically non-monogamous and there were almost no boundaries, and boundaries were consistently crossed and opened. And I've discovered that's also not the answer for me. So the answer looks like somewhere in the middle. And what is deeply important for me is merging into sacred union with another being that can then meet me in that place of deep transparency. And what I would call, like, these are the places where we can access things like telepathy, tantric union, right? There's a divine space of oneness that we can achieve. And does that look like having sex with only one person for the rest of your life? Maybe not. It probably isn't. But there is something about sacred union that is deeply embedded in my soul memory and something that I desire.
I love that you mentioned that. And you also mentioned before people in the military learning from what their families did and really not having the education. And so they would continue that generational trauma. And this is all about breaking that trauma by really doing some internal work and really doing some spiritual work to figure out what is the best way for you to live your life in relationship. So with that being said, I want you to tell me about the House of Embodied Metamorphosis and the metamorphosis method that you developed.
Yeah, I think that, all of this does come back to change and transformation. And that's one of the reasons why we created Metamorphosis and the family, the ecosystem of Metamorphosis organizations, because really Metamorphosis is this ecosystem, what I call little baby. She's a mother, and then she has all these organizations that then co-create and regenerate each other, like in a family system or in a tribe. And to me, this process of understanding what the new version of sacred union is, of breaking generational curses, of healing our bodies, of allowing the rage to flow out and to have an embodied emotional experience of whatever we've been storing in our DNA so that we can then alchemize it, is all about metamorphosis. And for us, that looks like a method that we follow, which is a 3-part process, quite simple. And it is preparation, experience, and integration. Quite simple. It seems very obvious, but most of the containers, especially the transformative containers that are out there, plant medicine containers, even like sexual or tantric containers, don't follow a method like this. And it ends up being a peak experience where you have what someone recently called an apex experience, very powerful, very penetrative, very masculine in its nature. But then we're missing the preparation of holding you to bring you into that container in a very safe way. And then the integration part, which is really that walking one step in front of the other to fully integrate and to fully recognize what the outcome is going to be, right? Like, how does this fit into your mundane life? How does this actually become a lived experience in your embodied humanness? And that's what we do at Metamorphosis.
That's fantastic. I had Leslie Draffin on the show a couple of seasons ago, and she talked about psilocybin and how it can be helpful for healing your womb and also for helping you to have better periods, because a lot of people have painful periods. And so it can be really helpful in that regard. And I just recently, this past weekend, did an ayahuasca journey, and I'm in the middle of integrating all of that. But my focus was on my womb and womb healing. And the reason that was my focus was because I too experienced sexual abuse in the past as a child. By the time I was 11, I had been abused by 5 people. And I can relate to your story because although my abuse was also not penetrative, I always knew it was wrong. And I always knew that it was sexual abuse. And so I appreciate you sharing your story with me. And I want to know about the plant medicine that you use, psilocybin, and how it helps to facilitate personal transformation. What are its uses and what are you using it for in particular?
I remember you sharing that you were going to be sitting with grandmother Aya, and what a synchronous thing that is. And to be here with you as you're on that integration journey. And I send so many blessings for that process, because really that to me is the most important part of the journey, is the integration of it. Because why would you even do it if it wasn't going to make your life better?
100%, because it can be like a quite uncomfortable journey, I have to say. There's parts of it that I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? But on the other side, it was like the most profound and beautiful experience. So I'll let you speak on that.
So psilocybin is, and all plant medicines, and this is what I did my research on, was the power of these plant medicines able to create both individual and then collective and social change, because whatever happens within you then starts to ripple outward into the collective. And on a neurological level, what plant medicines do, and I'll speak specifically to psilocybin because it's the medicine that is our primary medicine we work with, our sacrament. We have one that's called Trinity that we cultivate in our community. And what it does is it quiets the default mode network of the brain. It allows for other parts of the brain that are typically reserved for when we're children. It's the creative parts of the brain that are usually not being used in our daily lives, because we have this default mode network, which is the pattern-based habitual parts of the brain that then create a particular way of doing something. So they create this particular way of doing something that then takes the serotonin from one place to another on a superhighway, and that superhighway is grooved into your brain. And what psilocybin does is it activates the other options of how the serotonin can take a neuron that creates neural synapses and connections between different parts of the brain. And you essentially take detours. You take detours through your brain to new places, and then it quiets these other parts that tell you that, oh, you need to take this way because this is the only way that we know how to do it. And what you end up with is heightened sense of creativity and a heightened sense of wonder and curiosity that takes you into new realms and also helps you problem solve in a new and childlike way. So that's what's powerful for this, because you can look back on a trauma, and especially a trauma that's around sexuality, which is really like a trauma on our life force, right? It's on our creative center. It's like right there, almost like to the jugular. It's very potent. So when we have childhood sexual trauma that comes up, when our human self sees it or our default mode network sees it, we go, and we have a whole reaction to it, right, in our physical body. And we think, I don't want to look at that. Just put it over there and set it away. When the default mode network quiets, then there's a heightened sense of wonder and curiosity that says, I wonder if I looked at this a different way. I wonder, is there anything that came out of this that was beautiful? I wonder, and it gives you this whole list of questions in your mind that says, maybe I should take a deeper look at this and bring it closer. And ultimately, it allows us to integrate highly difficult and painful situations into our system so they don't become fractured, which is where we then get things like psychosis, narcissism, all of these other like psychological fracturing things, borderline, bipolar, things like that.
Absolutely. I love this. It's so true that we can, when experiencing abuse, sort of compartmentalize the abuse and kind of pack it away in the back of our mind and not address it. But if you do that, that compartment is always there and it's always coming back and reminding you, hey, I'm here. I need healing. And so as people go into their healing journeys, I think it's really important to think about how you can integrate all of the parts of your life, whether they were perceived as good or bad. Because unless you really focus on healing the bad and looking at the bad and really teasing that out, you're never going to get to the other side where you feel completely free and fully happy. So thank you for bringing that up and for talking about psilocybin in particular. Just as a side note, on my healing journey this past weekend with the ayahuasca, I was able to connect with my inner child. And that's always like a concept that's been like theoretical to me. Oh yeah, there's an inner child in there somewhere and whatever. I don't give her much attention. And during my healing journey in my 20s, we talked a lot about inner child work, but I felt like this was the first time that I actually held her and experienced her inside of me, where I could actually feel her energy, her sadness, her grief, her shame. And the thing that you tell yourself all the time is, you're perfect exactly as you are. You are exactly who you are supposed to be, and you are perfect exactly as you are. And I told her that as I was holding her in her face in my hands and rocking side to side. And I feel like for the first time in my life, she believed it. And so it was a really super powerful, profound experience for me and for healing my inner child and really like understanding how we are connected. We are not separate. And so I just wanted to share that.
I love this. I love this so much. And it is so real to the plant medicine experience that so many of these medicines help us reconnect with a lot of these parts of ourselves that we have, what I would say, forsaken, right? We've thrown them out, the baby out with the bathwater. And we've said, oh, that was a painful time in my life, so I'm not going to pay attention to that. And really, we end up exiling. And there's a whole system, internal family systems, that helps us to reconnect with these parts that have been exiled. And what a beautiful representation of what plant medicine does, helping us to reconnect with those small parts of us, and especially the inner child, which is such a potent and important, like it's a foundational part. It's like the root of all of us. And when that inner child is so hurt and so harmed and then isn't reparented by ourselves, right? We actually can't even get that reparenting from our own parents. We have to parent it from within, from ourselves. That inner child sits in pain for a very long time and often then hides. And then we pass that down to our children. So I just want to honor the generational curse breaking that you're doing through that work. Your children will thank you for that.
Yes. And I think that they have been such a big motivator for me to really go on this healing journey. And I never really thought that the podcast would be a healing journey. But as I talk to so many different practitioners and people like yourself who have gone on their own journeys and really experience their experiences through their stories. It has really helped me to heal as well. And so I appreciate you telling your story on the show today. And I want to get into our role play next.
This is an ad.
I hate it!
An ad for crisp, refreshing Angry Orchard hard cider.
That is refreshing.
An ad that interrupted your podcast.
I hate being interrupted!
To remind you to stop being angry at me and crack open an Angry Orchard.
That's a good idea.
Don't get angry. Get Orchard. Angry Orchard Cider Company, LLC. AngryOrchard.com. Please drink responsibly. Angry Orchard is a hard cider with other natural flavors.
Get ready for back to school with H&M. From mix and match basics to new denim styles, find their favorites for in and out of the classroom at your nearest H&M and on hm.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
Honey Bunches of Oats es la forma perfecta de empezar el día con tu familia. Con hojuelas crujientes y miel de verdad que a los niños les encanta. Además, deliciosos trozos de granola, nueces y fruta que todos van a disfrutar. Honey Bunches of Oats es para todos. Toca el banner para saber más.
So, we decided that we are going to pretend that we are two goddesses. And we are going to be doing like a fictional character type thing. And we're going to be talking about how humans are so flawed in their thinking about sexuality. So we'll just go off of that. Okay. And I'm going to say that I'm Medusa because the reason why is because as a child, my brother used to call me Medusa because I had curly hair and I was always very insulted by it, but I am going to take that power back. And so I am going to be Medusa today, and you are going to be who?
I'm going to be Kali Ma, who is the creatrix and the destroyer, because I've also been called names that are around destruction and villainy. And I'm also taking that back because Kali Ma can be your villain if you want, or she can be the sacred destroyer that's destroying things that need to be destroyed in order for new things to grow.
Yes, that's so true. Absolutely. Okay, so let's get started then. And action.
So I was thinking about all of these structures in place that are really supporting the masculine way of having sexual connection, right? It's like highly penetrative. And I was like thinking maybe I would just throw a fireball at every man that tries to have that kind of penetrative sex with a woman before doing like an hour's worth of foreplay, because that's really the way it should be. So what do you think? What do you think about that? If I could just toss a little fireball at him.
I agree that men do need to wake up in a lot of ways, but I do think that maybe a fireball might be a little bit painful and would then make them or render them unable to actually finish the act. But I definitely think that we do need to wake up humanity to the fact that women need external clitoral stimulation and not penetration in order to orgasm. And yes, some women can orgasm with penetration, but it's such a small amount. And we need to teach humanity about this. We need to teach humanity about this. How can we go about doing that? We need to spread some magic around the world.
Maybe you can just stand in the room and tell him in his ear that if he doesn't do the hour's worth of foreplay, that he'll have to look at you and then he'll turn to stone. What do you think about that? We'll just hang it out there like that.
Yes. Again, we would be killing off so many men that the women would just, they would have only feminine in the world. So we have to preserve the men in some way and teach them. And I think that is, yes, we can certainly destroy all of the negativity, but we definitely need to have the balance of masculine and feminine. So we need to do it in a way that is a little bit less painful, less destructive, and more educational.
So maybe we go in to the energies or the brain waves in their mind that is telling them that like primal, I need to penetrate this thing quickly, and that impatient energy. And we just set those neurons on fire. We can do that. What do you think?
Yes, I think that the brain is a really great place to start, because if you're only focusing on one pathway, which is penetrative, it's always going to build, but really understanding that there's pleasure for not just the woman, but the man in giving pleasure. I think that is so important. And so men have to understand that when they give pleasure, they also will receive pleasure by giving pleasure.
I just had an idea. Okay. What if we train your snakes to help the Kundalini awaken in all the men, and we take one off and we put it inside of his spine so that it helps to wake up his Kundalini, and he has a full awakening so he understands how important it is for the feminine to be in her pleasure.
I love this idea. And I think that this is the idea that can work, because every man needs to wake up his Kundalini, and he needs to understand that giving pleasure is just as pleasurable for him as it is for the person he's pleasuring.
Magnificent. This sounds like a perfect plan. And I will start to think about what else needs to be destroyed to create the space for this. And let's wake up all the Kundalinis of all the men.
Yes. And as I stir my cauldron here, we're going to be stirring our cauldrons. We are actually stirring, as if you're only listening and not viewing the show, we are actually stirring our cauldrons here and calling for that Kundalini in all the men in the universe to wake up and to understand that pleasure giving can be pleasure accepting as well. And seen.
That was so good. I love that.
That was hilarious. That was hilarious, but so much fun and so true. So true. Do you want to just speak on what we talked about?
Yeah. What a beautiful way of providing, because there is that feminine urge to like, just be like, screw this, like, F that, let me destroy this. That's awful. But then once again, we throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we're not actually healing something or alchemizing it, transmuting it. Really, the root of everything is that the men in our world need to recognize the importance and the power of their spiritual selves, and to re-embody their spirit, their souls in their physical body. And my son is expressing himself in agreement with that. So I would say that, and I actually love the image of taking Medusa's snakes and like encouraging or like guiding the way, right? There are ways to actually work with goddess entities and energies to help these things happen. And so I really truly feel that as men begin to awaken and recognize their spiritual selves through the divine mirror of the women around them, that they will begin to recognize how important this subtle energetic exchange between two humans is. And that will actually become more of our sexual experience than a lot of the more primal physical. Not that those won't happen, but it will just transform into a more subtle energetic experience, because they will recognize the value of it.
Absolutely. This has been so much fun. And I want to make sure that my listeners can find you. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Susannah Roses. And I think that'll be in the show notes and on here as well. And then you can go to our website, metamorphosis.ventures. Google will tell you how to spell metamorphosis. And we would love to have you. We have a big event coming up in October, at the end of October, called MetaFest that's in Northern California. We'd love to have you there. And we also have live virtual gatherings every month.
Amazing. And where are you based out of?
Currently, I am personally based out of Florida. I'm in the beautiful Sunshine State. And our organization is mostly virtual because we have facilitators everywhere. So we've got facilitators in California, in Virginia. We've got them all over the country, in Utah, like everywhere you can imagine. We do our retreats often in Costa Rica and also in Asheville, as well as some of our events in California. Like I mentioned, the festival in October.
Fantastic. And Costa Rica is one of my favorite places. And I just realized as I'm looking at you that your earrings are snakes.
I picked things out just for this. Yes, I did.
Before we knew that we were going to do the Medusa Kalima goddess conversation. So that is so powerful and amazing and so in line with what we were doing today. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I want to make sure that my listeners can find me as well. You can find me on pleaseme.online. If you go to the contact section, you can link up with all of my social media links, and please follow me there. And again, you can also reach out to me for physical therapy if you're local to me, or intimacy coaching that I do virtually as well. So with that being said, I want to thank you so much, Susannah, for being on the show today. This has been so much fun.
I have loved every minute of it. This was so much fun. My son is just like, he's going to be full of feminine energy for the rest of the day. So thank you.
That's fantastic. And all our sons need this, right? So if you have a son out there, we all need to make sure that we give them that feminine energy as well. Thank you so much. And until next time, for ad-free listening, exclusive bonus episodes, Eve's library of archived webinars, and early access to new releases of Please Me, become a monthly supporter on Patreon. Simply open the Patreon app on your phone, search for Please Me, and subscribe today for premium content and more. Cheers to finding your pleasure and big clit energy.